Cheers.
This is not water, I'll tell you that.
Same. This is not juice. There we go.
All right, let's start. Welcome to The Bunch of Us, a Nerdy Bunch weekly discussion on HBO Max series adaptation of The Last of Us. My name's English Dave, and joining me just to fan and gawk over how perfectly adapted this episode was is my co-host Raven. What's up, Raven?
What up, Dave?
Like, I thought I was playing like a 20K version of the game.
Right.
Yeah, like especially that scene where he's just going through the hallway. It was like even over the shoulder.
Right. It's like finally. Finally some action.
Final episode, Raven, episode 9. Look for the light. We got some new stuff. We got some adapted awesomely stuff. We got the magic bag.
We got the magic bag. We sure did.
Magic bag.
We got the magic bag.
And we got the giraffes, Raven. We can finally talk about.
I was like, did you actually spoil the giraffes?
No, I cut it. I didn't spoil that.
Okay.
I edited it out. I bleeped the word giraffe. We talked about it, but I did bleep out the word giraffe. This episode also gave us Ashley Johnson, who voices Ellie in the games, playing Ellie's mother in this show, and in real life, she helped give birth to the character of Ellie and giving birth to Ellie in the show. I just loved how that came full circle. That was perfect. This is great.
Yeah.
She was great.
It's also like, it's weird. Like, as a gamer or whatever, as a player of the game, it's strange hearing
Ellie's voice.
Because like, we were saying like Troy Baker, who was in the previous episode, who played the voice of Joel. We see him in an episode, but the thing about Troy Baker is Troy Baker does a lot of voices.
Yeah, he puts on a voice.
Right, for video games and stuff. So the voice that he does for Joel is a voice that he puts on. So Troy Baker's regular voice, and especially for any of you that have listened to the HBO official podcast, Troy Baker host. And at no point in time when I listen to it do I feel like this is old Joel. Whereas Ashley Johnson's character as Ellie and Ashley Johnson actually sound almost exactly the same. The only difference is age. And it's because Ashley Johnson was 10 years younger when she, originally recorded this. So for me as like the gamer, it's like a little weird. It's like, that's Ellie, it's like this alternate universe thing. But I did really enjoy it and love it because the greatest thing about, the casting in this series is the fact that that Bella Ramsey was so similar to the portrayal that Ashley Johnson did vocally in the original game. So kind of having her come back as, Ellie's mom, first of all, is great. And then two, I also feel like it just adds to the likeness of, or like, the believability that this is her mom. Like it lands and sinks instantly because you're like, no, in real life, these actors are very similar and I could see it being one generation in the next, So I did love that. And she's badass. She played the toughness of Ellie, but
you understood where it comes from.
The toughness of Ellie comes from Ashley Johnson. So it makes sense.
Yep.
And I absolutely love that we're getting so many voice actors, that we got so many voice actors in this series because I didn't expect any.
It's also kind of really good because if you play it on like actual real parentage thing, you get a lot of things people say, oh, you look just like your mom did at that age. You sound like just like your dad did at that age. So it kind of also plays on that. So it's like I hear Ellie and like, well, what if in real life Ellie sounds and looks a bit like her mother, and just again, like you said, that toughness of Ellie came from someone. The sea came from the mother. Ellie was literally born during an attack. Mother is just like, doesn't matter, just fighting the infected. I love that sequence, just coming in, the infected chasing her, just fighting it while giving birth, not pregnant, while giving birth.
I love it. I love that it shows that, like, one, that this is the first time, and also for us gamers, just so you guys know, this whole scene was not in the game at all.
Nope.
Like, we didn't know anything about Ellie's mom. The only hints that we get at Ellie's mom is that
she was connected.
That she was connected to Marlene, but you didn't really know how. You didn't know how they knew each other, why they knew each other, anything really. So this was kind of like a nice gem for all of us that have loved the series and loved Ellie. Because I think, one, it shows that Ellie did come from love. You get to see the circumstances that she was born into. And you also get to understand that like she was born out of rage in a lot of ways, and she was never
Survival.
right. She's been surviving since birth. Her mom had to survive. And I also love that we finally get an explanation for how Ellie is immune. Because it's been 10 plus years, y'all, and we had no idea.
We just had
And we didn't care.
theories. I don't know. People
Right.
cared. People had theories. There were whole Reddit sites and everything like that to
True.
try and figure out
I
what.
feel like personally, I didn't care. I was like,
Yeah.
hey, she's the chosen one, whatever. It's a typical chosen one story. We've seen so many things where there was a chosen one. We asked no questions, didn't care. Neo's chosen, sure. You know what I'm saying? So, like with Ellie, it's like, why not? But I do really love and appreciate this because even from the moments of seeing, what's her name? Anne, the character of Anne,
Yeah, yeah.
Ellie's mom,
Anna.
Anna running through the woods, seemingly being chased. In my head, I was like, oh, okay, so this is the moment. This is like, we're going to figure out what happened to Ellie's mom, whatever. It definitely just sets the backdrop of like, this is the world Ellie was born into,
Mm-hmm.
and these are the hard decisions that had to be made from day one, from the moment Ellie was brought into this world. And, it's continued to be a theme in Ellie's life. People have to make these really hard decisions that affect her and kind of the world without her really having a say so.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I liked also seeing, like you said, more context to Marlene and Anna, and Marlene's knowing that Marlene has known Ellie since he's young, and almost we get confirmation that Marlene's kind of known that Ellie was somewhat immune from birth, right? When she talks about the doctors earlier on, when she mentions to Joel about the doctors earlier on, she kind of knew, and so gives you context, like, oh shit, she set up Ellie to go to be in Fedra.
Mm-hmm.
To work her way up in the ranks of Fedra, because Anna says
True, she's slowly like grooming her. She was gonna pop up eventually.
right,
Yeah.
and because when Anna says to her, make sure someone takes care of her, not you take care of her, find someone to take care of her. So you get a sense that Marlene was just like, all right, Fedra, give it to your enemies. Here, Fedra,
Right.
you raise her.
You also get the idea that Anna, as her best friend, was completely aware that that Merle is her name in real life, but that Marlene doesn't really have any maternal instincts
No.
about her. She's
No.
not the mothering type. Like anytime we've seen Marlene hasn't been gentle. She hasn't been very kind or endearing. Like granted, she cares about the people, but that's been Marlene's MO the entire time is the good of all people, not one
Yes.
individual. And Anna knows that about her. You're gonna sacrifice,
And whatever it takes.
right? You'll do whatever to sacrifice whatever you have to sacrifice for everyone. But I need someone to care about my daughter.
Yes.
So in that moment, it's like, do whatever you got to do. I
Doesn't
don't
have to be you.
care if it's you. It just has to be someone. And anyone else, just maybe not you. If you have to, sure, not you. Like,
like if you choose to, fine, but you don't have to. I'm just saying that someone should.
But
Just letting
hey,
you know.
look, if you can't do it. But I do love that, and I also love that behind the scenes, Ashley Johnson and Merle Danders Merle Danders, who plays Marlene, were interviewed about that scene specifically and what it was like for them, because they had met, or I'm not sure, they met kind of during the original process of the game, because both of them were voice actors, but I don't think they really interacted with each other like that. But in this scene, both of them said it was really, really, really hard to get through, and it's really hard to act through because one, they're so connected to these characters. Ashley Johnson really felt like she was losing her daughter in real life. Being that Merle Dandridge played Marlene in the game, there was connection there, and both actresses said that it was a really hard scene to do. Like both of them needed like the day to kind of come down after that, because they were fully in the role of protect this child, do what has to be done, and it shows. I feel like chemistry wise, I fully believe that even within this short amount of time that Anna and Marlene had a whole legacy together.
Take out the romantic angle. It gave me vibes of Ellie and
Riley.
Riley, which
Yes,
I thought was cool.
same. I was like, Ellie and Riley, if they didn't have feelings for each other. Like
Yeah.
this is what that would have been,
Yeah.
it would have been that situation, and it would have been Ellie and Riley growing older, surviving even another 10, 15, 20 years together,
Mhm.
and then that happening. So you really do understand it. It heavily mirrors what we saw with Ellie and Riley in the beginning. So I think that it has a greater impact for sure having it in the finale.
Oof, but would you kill me if I begged you to?
That I don't know, Dave. I don't know. I don't know.
I
I
loved how
really
that was.
don't.
I loved how
I
that
thought
was
about
done.
it. I love how she first said no.
Yeah, because you feel it, you understand, and even the way she does do it, it's not like a slow thing. It's like just get out of the way, boom.
I feel like
And
it's the same as like getting on a really scary roller coaster.
yeah,
Or like ripping a band-aid off or whatever. It's one of those things that you really have to psych yourself up for it and just go for it, because you probably felt like if she did it slowly, she wouldn't go
yeah,
through
you'd be
it.
thinking about it too much,
Right.
and you give a chance to look at your friend's face. Even if they want it, it's still
I don't know if I
gonna be,
could do it.
it's still gonna be fear.
But also, I
I
feel
thought
like
she was gonna send one of the guards to do it.
me
That's
too.
what I
I
thought.
also feel like it says a lot to the series, though, that you as a viewer feels instantly like that's worse.
Yeah.
Her like Marlene leaving Anna alive is worse. Because like
Mhm.
even though like my best friends, what I'm saying, one of the closest people I have. Like if that were to be our scenario, I don't know that,
Hmm.
and beyond that, I think that I don't know, it's
Which is
a tough
funny.
decision to make.
It's funny you bring it up. You
And
say that.
but also her begging, like you have
Oof.
to. It's like I think
Right.
that's the harder part, because it's not
Right.
about killing your friend. It's killing your friend knowing that this is the absolute best scenario for them.
Which
Like this
is
is the best favor you could possibly do.
funny you say that, because later on, I'm just jumping ahead for a second because of context. Ellie tells Joel she had to do that
And I did
same thing.
wonder about that.
She had to
Also,
do the
boom,
same thing.
as someone who's played the game, that is also something that is not confirmed.
No.
As a gamer, you play all the DLC, which is what's
Left
the name of
behind.
it? Left Behind. And in the end, like it ends the same way it does. Oh, let's be all poetic and shit and just lose our minds together. And that's it. It fades to black, and that's it. You do not know what happens to Riley. She doesn't tell you. You obviously understand that Riley died no matter what, but you don't know that Ellie is the one that kills her. So I do love that Ellie has to actually verbally explain, like,
Mhm.
I was the one. She turned and I had to kill her.
Parallels. Another parallel we get. We'll talk about the first part of it now, and then talk about the second part later. A parallel of accepting the lies that people tell you, even though you know they're lying. We get at the beginning with Marlene when she asks Anna, when Anna says, I cut it before I was bitten. And then Marlene looks at her, the umbilical cord, right? She says, I cut before I was bitten. And Marlene looks at her like, did you though? She's like, before I was bitten. She repeats herself,
Know what
you
I'm
know.
saying? Something.
And again, that again, we'll
Can
go
you
into it
dig it?
later. That mirrors Joel at the end, telling Ellie, yes, everything was true. And Ellie kind of, really though? So like, accepting the people's lies and trying to understand why people are lying to you for the moment that's happening. I think that's another mirror. And again, this whole thing is about the decisions people make, because one thing I love about this whole show is that no one's a bad guy.
No.
Everyone's just, from their perspective,
If
they are the
anyone's the
good guy.
bad guy, it's you as a viewer. Like it
Exactly.
sounds bad, but it's like that's what it ends up being. It's like on you. Like if that's what you feel about it, then that's you. You're a fucked up person. Like
Right.
we're not saying anything.
Well, I will
It's
say
subjective.
the cannibals last week were bad guys.
Okay, they're all bad.
David, I would say
We
David
can
at
all
least.
accept that they're bad guys.
Yeah.
You are a bad guy, but maybe that doesn't mean you
You're a
are a
bad
bad
guy.
guy. But no, David's a bad guy. Fuck David.
We also, another thing we find out that we didn't know about the game was, because we knew it's significant, but we didn't know where the knife came from. Now we know where the knife comes from. It's her mother.
Yeah, we found out it is.
The knife.
It is. She's at. That's the thing too. Ellie's family heirloom is a knife. That should show you everything you need to know about Ellie. That tells you everything you needed to know. Do you have any traces of your mom? Yes. This knife.
That
Not
she
a
used to
necklace.
cut the umbilical cord and kill the zombie that was
Right.
attacking her as she was
That
giving
killed
birth
her.
to me.
Right, and blessed me. Like, what the
Right.
fuck? But I love it. You know, I love that. I love getting those moments because again, it just further builds the character of Ellie that we all grew to love, but now we have a little more understanding, you know? And but the thing that is sad that I felt was kind of bittersweet is like, but Ellie never saw this scene.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Like Ellie has no idea this is what happened or what
Well, she
happened to
knows that
her.
it's from her mother, the nan.
Right,
Yeah, but the context of it, I'm not sure how much Marlene told her. You know, she probably doesn't have the full
right.
story. Yeah. Um,
That was a tough scene to get to.
the main episode picks up, and I found this out from because one thing I missed from the games is the games gives us a general sense of time. Right, we get every time a chapter closes, we get time in the form of different seasons, like
Mm.
spring, summer, winter, and I think we've gone in the show. We've gone from winter to spring, or coming into spring. We know that they're not around the snow anymore, but I wasn't sure how much time had passed. But from listening to the podcast, the creator said it's been about a month since the last episode. And we pick up with Emily still. She's been going through a month of, it seems at least, of PTSD trauma. She's emotionally shut down. You know, she
Which
was
is completely understandable.
completely
Between
understandable.
being sexually assaulted, between being literally kidnapped, between
Smashing the guy's face to
uh
death.
right, between smashing someone's face to death, between literally having to fight for her life. Well, she not only smashed a man's face to death, she fucking what axed someone in the neck. That's
Right?
you know,
Because even if you're justified in fighting for your life, that's still traumatic to do it. You
it's
know,
still some,
even if you're justified.
the thing is the very fact that you were in that scenario at all is traumatic.
Mhm.
You know, like regardless of the outcome, the fact that you were in a scenario where you were completely helpless, you know, where you couldn't help yourself because this whole time Ellie's been tough, you know, seemingly she can handle anything. So it's like the one time that she's caught off guard, the one time she didn't have her protector around, you know, this is like Ellie, that was Ellie's like first time really seeing what the world is like
And first
outside of a
crazy
cheesy,
kill, like
right? Like
hard kill
actual, yeah, like, you
in
know,
your
so
face, not from a distance, like
right.
rage, full on rage.
And the
Right.
truth of the matter is like no one would be the same ever again, you know,
Mhm.
and for that to happen to somebody that's young and you know the whole because I think that's been a question too throughout the whole series is that you know like oh is it better because you're young, is it easier to deal with because you're young, and the answer is no, and I feel like Ellie shows that like trauma is trauma. It doesn't matter what age you are, it doesn't matter how prepared you are or think you are, you know, trauma comes in all forms. And I love and also hate that Ellie is forever changed by this because from a writing standpoint having her not be affected by this would have been a disservice. You know, like she has to be affected by everything that happens. It's a human quality. So I absolutely love it, but you also absolutely hate it because I grew to
She's like,
love
Ellie,
Ellie's puns, right? I love Ellie's
Ellie,
puns. I love Ellie's, you know, can do attitude, you know, oh, 5 hours, that's nothing. We can handle it, you know.
right?
She's just and as like cutthroat and badass that she's always been, and like you know something about that was so gentle and innocent. So I feel like it's hard at the start of this episode, you know, once we see her and Joel again, and it's hard in the game too
Mhm.
because in the game you're Joel and you're trying to console her,
Yeah,
you're trying to speak
I
her,
want to type actual
you're
words.
trying to keep her, you're right, you're trying to cheer her up because in the game you could choose to talk to her, not
Mhm.
obviously you're going to, but it's an option. And you know,
Mhm.
you get to bring up random things. So in the game, you're Joel and you're really trying to be like, hey, but look at this, hey, but look at that. And you know, she's zoning out and she's disassociating now, which is something that Joel was doing when we first met Joel. So the fact that he's the one that's now more present, the one that's more upbeat, you know, it's a tough, it's a tough switch to
I
deal
do
with.
love that switch there. Even that was his fear, right? His fear was her losing her innocence too early. Because that's the difference, right? Like you said, it's not that children can handle it better than adults or anything like that. It's some children, some of us, when we were younger, we were blessed enough to have people around us to shield us from certain things for a longer period of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And when you
Yeah.
don't hand, that's what Joel is trying to shield her. You know that's going to be inevitable, it's going to happen, but how long can I shield her away from this as long as possible? And he's realizing that, well, it's too late. Just cross the line, you know, it's gone.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, shit, they went and got a real giraffe, Raven.
That's the thing. My wife and I were staring at the giraffe, and I was like, "Is that a CG giraffe or that's a real
No,
giraffe?"
that
And we
was
really
real.
couldn't tell. I was like, "That is a really good
Yeah.
CG giraffe." So it's a real giraffe.
It was a real
It's a
giraffe.
shame. I'm like, we're finally at the point in life and technology where I literally can't fucking tell the difference between a CG giraffe and a real one. I have no idea.
But then
I'm like, this
you
CG's getting good. And I'm
that's
like,
the
I
thing.
don't
It's
know.
not just that you can't tell the difference. You just accept it as CGI. It was a real giraffe that they
Wow,
used,
it's a
and
real giraffe.
and I
Appreciate
love
it.
that moment because Ellie's kind of sad the whole time, and Joel's trying everything, and this is the one thing that kind of, oh my god, and what I like about that scene as well is that that's something that she would not have ever seen. She might have heard of, read up in books and stuff like that, but she's never seen that before. Shit, there's people in real life today who's never seen giraffes before. I've
Yeah.
never been that close. I've seen giraffes, but I've never been that close to a giraffe.
I never
And
fed a giraffe.
right, and for me, that moment in the game also kind of likened it to the scene in Jurassic Park with the dinosaurs.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
me
that kind of
too.
like, whoa, as a
Yeah.
kid, just like, oh my god. So you understand because I was watching with my wife and she's like, why is she running? How did she know where she's going? I'm like, don't worry. And you understand she's chasing something as a kid with it. I'd be like, oh my god, this giraffe, what the hell? But then she see that happiness and that childhood wonder come back again, and Joel sees that and he kind of takes advantage of that in a good way by showing her, don't worry, some things aren't, not everything's a danger to you. Some things can be trusted, some things are safe.
And I love that, and I love that Joel kind of, like you said, takes advantage of the situation. We get to now see a more vulnerable side of Joel. And I feel like this starts like, the conversation of Joel is finally opening up about his daughter. As much time as Ellie and Joel have been together, he's never given her any type of details about personality, about anything about Sarah, really. All we really know is that he had a daughter, he lost his daughter, and that's it. Leave it alone. We don't talk about it. So I love that, something as simple as you would have loved, she would have loved you, or you would have loved her, but y'all are different. And I do love that he goes out of his way to say like you and Sarah are very different, but because you're different, you would enjoy each other. Some people go into the motions where, or like you get nervous like on a rebound situation, like, but this isn't your daughter, and you like don't treat her like that because she's different. I like that he's acknowledging like you're not the same as my daughter, but I care for you in the same way. Without saying that, you start to really understand, especially in this episode, like Joel actually loves Ellie and Ellie
Mhm.
loves Joel, which is, like you said, at this point, the conversation comes up, but like we don't have to do this, and
Yeah,
I
I was
love
going to
that
get to that next. I was going to get to the next. Go into it.
I
Go.
love that whole conversation about, Joel saying we don't have to do this because on a typical like parental honey, everything's okay, everything's all right, don't worry, even though a lot of times when your parents are saying that, you automatically like, what's wrong? you
Mhm.
know what's going
It's
on?
not for you. It's
Nothing's
for
right.
them.
Right. And him basically like just telling her, oh, we just not is sort of in ways Joel being like, I'm scared, like I
Mhm,
don't know what
mhm.
happens next, we could just keep things the way that they are. Joel realizes too she's already sort of damaged. Do I want to make this worse? I don't know what situation this is going to be. And like he says, what is it, there's been a lot of bad,
Yeah,
or like,
yeah, and there's
because
going to be a
I
lot
don't
of
remember
bad.
the quote. Right. Whatever we do, there's been a lot of bad, and we can just quit all this right now and go back to Tommy. And it's sad what Ellie says in response, because she says, after everything I've done.
Yeah. Yep. Mhm.
Um, so I love this moment of Ellie being like, no matter what, we have to keep going, no matter what it takes, because like everything I've done or everything we've done can't be for nothing. And it's just sad, like in
But
hindsight.
she said after we finished, I'll
I'll
go
follow
with
you
you
anywhere you go.
anywhere you go.
Anywhere you go.
Just kind of letting her know, like I'm here for you. We just got to finish this.
I
Just
love
get this done. I'm
very
here for
much
you.
like a rom-com moment,
Yeah.
like
Right.
not a
Right.
rom-com, but like it's just that romantic movie moment. Like, I'll
Mhm.
follow you to the end of the world,
Right.
and she
Right.
goes
Right.
to
Right.
see the moon.
Right.
What she say, the sheep,
Yeah. Yeah. The farm or the moon.
the farm, the moon, anything. And I'm like, "Oh, that's what you
Aw.
both wanted to do. Is what you wanted. Oh."
It keeps going because that's when he admits to her his story of why he's deaf in one ear. Because he mentioned that someone shot at him and missed, and he missed back. Well, that someone was himself. He tells her, I was, it was 2 days after Sarah had died. Because I love
Mhm.
that she's like, oh, I thought it was like well into it. 2 days after the whole thing happened, 2 days into the pandemic after Sarah had died. and he tried to kill himself. He even says, I was ready to die. I wasn't even scared. I was ready to do it. But for some reason, which I still don't know why now, I flinched. And that's how I ended up in the emergency medical camp. And I really like that because he almost kind of gives you a sense of almost divine intervention as well. Like he had a purpose, and his purpose was to be here with Ellie. And I like what she says, when she says, I'm glad that you weren't successful in that. I'm glad
Yeah,
that didn't
that
happen.
didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't work out. And I like how she says, oh, when he was trying to tell her something, she's like, oh, what? Time heals all wounds. And he goes, it wasn't time that did it. And I love that moment because he just like, oh my goodness. Because these are
It's
two
too much
like,
gut wrenching.
these are two like tough people who
Yeah.
can't just quite say, love you, man.
Yeah.
I love you. It's just like this is a moment where Joel and Ellie, they're both like two people who aren't really as connected with their emotions, right? And so when they get these emotional things, they have to find ways to say it. And he doesn't quite say that because of you, my life changed, but he says it wasn't time that did it. And he looks at her and he's tearing. And I love like the change of subject. Yeah. Let's move on. Let's talk about shitty puns.
I was about to say, in the mood for shitty puns. When he says I'm in the mood for shitty puns, it's like, oh my God, you love her. You love her
Yeah,
so
yeah.
fucking much. That is your daughter. And I love that though. Like, as a viewer, just I'm in the mood for shitty puns. It's like, oh,
I
you
did like the
guys.
joke about the apocalypse. The apocalypse, like there's no tomorrow. Too soon.
She said
It's
too
like
soon.
it's like no topical.
And sadly, too, it's almost like the same as Ellie, where on the day you confess your love to your best friend is your friend's last day. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's that same situation. Like, the day Joel finally is like, I'm willing to accept you as my daughter figure. This is your adoption day. Boom, your new daughter is dead, or we're gonna kill her. And
Well,
it's like,
that's how the writers go through my school of writing as well. That you used to always hate. Make your characters suffer. Every time something good's happening, gotta follow up with some suffering. Things are going too good. They were like showing each other affection. She was feeling better after just being all like emotionally distanced before. They're getting close. Of course, they're gonna miss. And I watched it the second time. I didn't like. I was caught up, and I was like, oh shit! There's a flashbang on the floor. Watching it the second time, I saw the people creep up behind them and then throw the. I was like, oh shit! I didn't even notice them the first time I was
yeah,
watching it.
I did notice. I was like,
Yeah.
oh shit. But
And this is when I was just like,
yeah.
oh shit. Because again, we know what's going to happen from here. And my wife was just like, what's going on? What's going on? And I love this moment in the game as well because it's when you find out from Arlene, like, yeah, we need to go into Ellie's brain and she's gonna probably die. As the gamer, we all had the moment of like, well, duh, how did we think this was going to work? You
But we
never think about
all
it.
also fucking furious. I would whip
Right?
Marlene's
It's
ass.
like,
I would
what?
drag you through that hospital, through the fucking state, and all the way back to Boston, you fucking bitch. Anyway, I hated Marlene in the game in that moment. And
Right?
I wanted to murder the shit out of her. So when things happen, you're like, oh, I'm Joel. Like
Oh,
the rage
where's
you
my
feel.
daughter?
But at the same time, even within it, because like in a game, like same as in the show, when you go to get up, you're kicked down and there's guns in your face and there's everything. But they just told you they plan on killing somebody you protected for 24 fucking hours. So like it's, well, gameplay wise, in the
Mhm,
game, this is like, technically over what, like a year this
mhm.
takes place?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like, and like, and I watched a lot of behind the scenes, and when the game originally came out, they did testing. Obviously, they have to test every part of the game. And when they did testing on the ending of the game, when they had people come in, they said that anybody who did not have a child was 50-50. It was like if you interviewed 100 people, do you think Joel's decision was right or wrong? It was about a split decision, 50-50. Had no idea. They said anybody that was a parent or had a child, it was a 100% I agree with Joel every single time. Literally every single time. And it's like, it's tough because, you've grown to love Ellie, you've grown to understand Ellie, you've grown to take care of this person. And I think it's worse because you don't get to say goodbye. I think that
Yes.
if, and to this day, I keep, and it's been years since we played the game, and it's one of the most controversial endings of anything, especially any game ever.
Yeah.
Um, but like you still go through it, and it's like, if Marlene would have just done something as simple as, Ellie, this is the scenario. How do you feel? And let Ellie decide for herself. Or if you even just told Joel, here, come visit Ellie, say your goodbyes. She made this decision, or she's already dead. She gone, bro. Like, don't even come looking for her. It's
Well,
like
you
if
have to remember
lies
that
needed to be told, like,
you have to remember that Marlene she only knows the Joel who gives no fuck from before. She doesn't know that he's become soft.
which I get, but it's also like,
Joel is like cargo. I don't give a fuck. Cargo. Like Joel doesn't care. So she hasn't seen that journey. She's like, shit, you're still alive.
I would say it does make more sense in the show, in that part. Because like as we've spoken about, I think before in the podcast, like in the game, you don't know Marlene and Ellie's connection at all until literally this last scene with Joel in the hospital when Joel's waking up. And Marlene's like, you understand how hard it is for me. I knew her whole life. And you as a gamer is like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, you known her this whole time. You knew who she was. You knew her mom. You knew this, you knew that. And you let me, like, this doesn't make any sense, and now you're going to kill her? Like, F you, Marlene. So, like, I do love that you got more context for, at bare minimum, Marlene and how Marlene would feel or want to go about this, which is like double betrayal. Cause like, come on, Marlene, give her a choice. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were supposed to protect her or whatever, and I get it by any means necessary, whatever. But at the same time, like, as her caretaker, that's
But
fucked up.
she was never a caretaker. She shipped her off to Fedra.
That's the thing. That's
She
what I'm
never got
saying
close. She
too.
never got close to her.
But that's the
Personally.
thing I was gonna say too, on some, for Marlene to say, oh, it was harder for me. That's bullshit. You never spent an entire
You
year.
knew her mom, sure.
You know her mother, but you never spent even
you
a
didn't know
full
Ellie.
week with Ellie. You definitely weren't with her for months to literally a year every fucking day. You have no idea. And for you to be like, oh, you don't understand. I'm the only one that
But
gets
I feel
it.
like
Fuck you.
I feel like that's Marlene's character, right? As the leader, right? She's put herself in it, but she's felt that she has to be a person that doesn't get close to people. She just needs to do what's done, right? She even says at the beginning, like, "Whoa, you guys made it! I lost like 5 men getting through here," and not like, "Oh shit!" Like
Not like a tragedy, like just
yeah,
a
the tragic.
number.
They're just numbers,
Five
you know.
pensions.
It's just got that, so she's
Pension
got
number
that mindset, for better or for
25.
worse. Sometimes you need someone like that. There's an argument, and I think that's what the writers did a fantastic job of. Each decision has an argument for why that's right. You have an argument for why Joel's right. You have an argument for why she's right, because this is saving humanity. When she says to Joel, like, okay, then what? You're gonna die. She's gonna grow up in a world either she's gonna be ripped apart by zombies or killed and raped by people, crazy people,
Raiders,
by
yeah.
raiders and stuff. When we could have created a world where that doesn't need to exist anymore. And I think my biggest part is that, yeah, I agree. She should have given Ellie a choice, but then she even says to Joel, you should give it a choice. Don't you, what she would have done? And I did get a sense that maybe because Ellie has that sense that I think she would think about it and be like, huh, maybe I should sacrifice myself. And Joel knows that
Ellie
too.
would have.
Yes.
I think Ellie would have, simply because outside of Joel, Ellie has nothing to live for.
No.
Joel has Ellie, but beyond Ellie and Joel's connection, there's nothing for Ellie. Riley left, and we've already seen a glimpse of what Ellie's life was like without Riley. It was bleak. People make fun of her. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's dealing with bullies. She's dealing with authority, having a problem with authority. The Fireflies won't accept her. Also, that's one thing I forgot to say. In hindsight, this all makes sense too.
Why Marlene wouldn't let
right. Marlene didn't let Ellie in because she knew exactly who Ellie was, and she was sworn to protect Ellie. So she's not going to put Ellie in the Fireflies because that's literally how her mother died.
Yeah.
Marlene is not going to let Riley bring Ellie into the bullshit. But
or take her away because she was going to go somewhere else, right? Atlanta. So it's like, I need to keep an eye on her.
Put her in Fedra in Boston for a reason. So it's all context, but like you said, it's tough. It's one of those things where, like for example, Nanny, if you're listening, my grandma, Nanny's actually watching it. She figured it out. She watched Finale.
Nice.
She messaged me instantly. She hates it. Absolutely hated it. Nanny felt like the ending was them clearly trying to set up a season 2. And I was like, crazy enough, when the game, I was like, it's exact. Like, I didn't respond this to her yet, but Nanny, this is your answer. So this is, but in the games, it's the exact same conclusion. Like there's nothing different at all. It's the exact same ending as the game. But in the game when it was made, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure the game was made without there being like
No, there was no
definite
thought of
plans for a
sequel.
second game at
No,
all.
it
So
wasn't.
because of that, I'm like, no, it was always supposed to be open ended. It was always supposed to
They
be this
want the
ambiguous,
conversations.
right? It's this morality based, like, what would you do situation. I'm like, and everybody hates it, but it doesn't stop it from being amazing. It doesn't stop it from being a great ending.
But it's real. And that's what I like about that ending, because it's like these are real conversations and these are real situations, like where there's the logical decisions and then there's emotional decisions, and sometimes you're forced into decision where those two are at odds with each other, right?
Yeah,
And these are real things, and I think sparking these conversations are good conversations because these are real things you'd have to deal with in situations like that,
right.
you know.
Like, would you be able to kill literally the only person you love or the only person you have left to sacrifice it for a bunch of fucking strangers? And like,
Well,
not just the
well,
strangers, but it's the
not just
truth.
strangers, the entire world.
That's what I'm saying. The world full of strangers. You don't know these
Yeah,
fucking
yeah.
people. You know
But
what I'm
then it's
saying? It's
like,
like,
but then you ask the question of like in like Marley's argument, okay, but what's the future look like? Because that's not a long future, right? Where if you don't say, because it's only temporary fix.
but see, this is my response to somebody that doesn't live in an apocalypse as of right now, or maybe people would consider it my current time in apocalypse. I don't know. But either way, somebody who's living in a time right now without infected, without zombies, all the things that they dealt with are things that you still deal with. You know what I'm saying? So that's the question again of morality or humanity is like, are people worth saving? Is it worth it to risk and sacrifice somebody you absolutely love, that you know is good, that you know is whatever you know them to be, for the chance that humanity will, improve or thrive? Because what if, because I'm sure Joel thought about this too, and this is another thing that I want to say in terms of like, in addition to the series that wasn't in the game, because we've gotten to see a little more about like for example, in the beginning when Joel first meets Ellie in their first couple of conversations, he talks about how Tommy tried to join the Fireflies and how the Fireflies have always had these like, oh, you're the chosen one, or oh, this is the thing, this is the cure. For somebody like Joel who's seen a bunch of quote unquote cures, or who has seen a bunch of trial runs of this is the thing and has seen it fail, how are you going to tell that person, oh, but this is the actual time? You know what I'm saying? Like, you were wrong when Tommy was involved. You were wrong when this person was involved. You've been wrong for 20 years, but I'm supposed to believe that this is the one time everything is all right. And like, how do I know that you know all the right information? You're killing Ellie. And how do I know that like this is the cure, or that you'll even be able to find a cure from Ellie? You know, how do I know that these
I
doctors are capable? I'm just saying, as like from
Yeah,
Joel's
yeah.
perspective, you don't have a way of like interviewing a qualified medical professional. You know what I'm saying? How do you know? So it's like, from his perspective, I would do the same, and it sucks, but it's the truth. Like,
Here's my rebuttal to that. Again, I get from Joel's perspective. That's the thing. What I like about this writing is that Joel's perspective is flawed, right? Because
of course,
one, he's failing to see the truth in front of me, literally, because he's heard all those stories, but he's never seen anyone who's been bitten twice and survived. He's actually seen that in the eyes. And two, what I love is going from what Marlene says to him. It's Joel is not thinking about Ellie in this
yeah,
moment. He's thinking about himself. He doesn't want to be alone. He doesn't want to lose his purpose, because the fact that Marlene says to him that you know that Ellie would make the decision, and he kind of thinks to himself, and the fact that he lies to Ellie, he knows that she meant, so everything this is him being selfish. He's gone from, I can't, again, understandably, he's going through the same situation again, almost visually similar. I'm holding this little girl who could be my daughter in my hands, and someone's pointing a gun at them. Last time she died. It's not going to happen again. He's going through PTSD. And so he's completely being selfish in the sense of every decision is for him, for his happiness, because like Bill told him before, this is our purpose. Once she's gone, what is the purpose? He doesn't know. He has no idea what to do. And then secondly, as you go back a couple of episodes, when we meet Tommy, Tommy says to him, we did a lot of things because we thought, along the lines of, we thought that's the way to do it. But we weren't good at the other way,
and there were
because
other ways.
there
We
were
just
other
weren't good at
ways.
them.
We just weren't good at them. And I think this is highlighting that conversation, that there might be other ways, but Joel doesn't care to even think about any other way. He's not good. He's just going to go back to the way he knows.
Joel's way.
which is going savage and killing everybody in his way. Which again, which plays on the idea like even his brother, even I forget the name of his brother's wife. Was it Mary or Marie?
No, Maria.
Yeah, Maria. Even she even tells Ellie, "Watch out for Joel. He's kind of crazy." And that's what we see here. No mercy, just killing everyone. Some guy's putting his gun down, like, "I'm sorry, nope, you're dead too." Like stabbing the guy in the face. And what I love about this
And
is,
shoot to kill. It's not even like
right? Yeah, no, just shoot to completely kill. The doctor,
my light
boom, shoots in the
died.
face,
I
and
was like,
even
what the fuck? Sorry, my light died. I was
oh,
like,
my screen just went darker. But
it's haunted.
what I like about that is, as much as he's badass killing all these people, it's never felt glorified. And this whole show has done that. Every person that's killed, to get close up of their face to show that
Yeah.
they're a person. The music is somber. There's always been like this depth to people being killed. You're not like, yeah, badass killing. You're like, dang. In the game, you're
That
probably
is
like more like,
something,
yeah. In the
right.
game.
That is something I appreciated or have appreciated throughout this entire series, is that like death is ugly.
Ugly.
And it's
Even
been
even when
ugly throughout the
necessary.
entire season. Even when it's absolutely necessary, you're still taking a life. And I appreciate that at bare minimum, this show was always very much aware that like each life matters, like every single person that they encountered, every person that was killed, whether it be stealth or not or whatever, guns blazing in any situation, even if you understand, you always felt sympathy somehow for these characters. And I love that because it's the truth. In real life, it's hard to kill from what I've heard. I have no idea.
Can't be that easy. And all the ramifications afterwards. It's not like you kill and just move on. you know.
Right. These people are connected. You know what I'm saying? There are people, this is somebody's brother, this is somebody's,
They had dreams, they had hopes,
spouse, their sibling, like they're anything, they're, parents. So it's like, I do love that this series doesn't take death lightly. And that's one thing I do appreciate, because again, we've talked about this many times on the podcast, that like a lot of shows, especially apocalyptic shows, they devalue life. It's like you become so used to people dying that you don't have any value for the ones that are still alive. That's not the truth. I feel like if there was a real apocalypse, whoever the fuck is left is really important, So it's like each life would matter in an apocalypse. You would become tired to this. You would have PTSD. Everybody would have I don't know, I want to say a different like mood or discernment about them, because this is, it's a different scenario. You have to do these things.
and some of these people, they're
They're just
just gods.
people.
They're just gods. They probably didn't even know Ellie was there.
But that's what I'm saying. Ellie could have, but that's the thing too. Ellie could have been one of them.
Right?
It's just such a like, this is just what we do.
Yeah.
Like people aren't in Fedra because they want to be.
Yeah.
This
They're
is
not, I
the
want to be a
job that's
henchman.
assigned to you. As we saw, Ellie was going to be assigned as
Right.
a sanitation worker. You get assigned these jobs. These people aren't here because, oh, I want to fight for my country. Like, this is what the fuck they were told to do from birth. Oh, you're
Right.
fit. All right, you're in the army. You're on
Here
the
you go. Here's
guard.
a gun. Go.
Right. So it's like, you really do feel bad for these people. And in the game, you feel bad. Even though you're in a rage as the gamer, you only want to just go save Ellie. Like, as the gamer, you're like, I don't really want to do all this. I kind of just want to find what room she's in, grab her, and be out. But like, you cannot progress in the game to save Ellie until you take out a bunch of innocent people. So as the gamer, you
And the
feel
doctors in the game, though.
horrible. But in the game, that's what I was gonna say too. In the game, you take out every fucking doctor.
Everybody.
You don't take out one. There's 4 of them. You take out
All
all
of them.
4.
All of them.
So I appreciated that in this, that he didn't kill all the innocent doctors. All I'm gonna say without saying anything crazy is that everything that happens in this show, like repercussions are
Yep.
like there are repercussions for everything.
Always. I can't wait to season 2.
Whoever was spared, who wasn't,
Well,
who
which is why he
lived, who
doesn't spare
didn't.
Marlene, right? Because like, you're
Because
gonna
like he said, you never stop looking for her. Leaving anybody alive in that situation, they're never gonna stop looking for him, because at bare minimum, if you injure somebody in this time, even if you hurt somebody's leg, do you know how much a hurt leg is when you're trying to run from fucking infected? Imagine you heal from this leg. Are you gonna forgive the person that shot you in the leg?
And again,
It's
but
like
also
little
not
things
just
like
that.
that.
Marlene is so focused on her agenda. You think you know that she's going to get back up again and try and in her mind make things right.
To be
Right?
honest, the best scenario for Marlene would have been to play dead. She shouldn't have said a damn word. She should have lay right
Oof,
on that ground, stayed there until he left, and miraculously popped up and tried to figure shit out, find the 3 doctors she had left
right.
upstairs.
Which I,
Um,
I did feel bad, even in the game, right? Because you're not controlling at this point. Once when you kill
yeah,
Marlene, you're
this
not
is a
controlling.
cutscene.
So when she's just like, please don't, I was like,
Shooting
damn,
Marlene's a
Joel,
cutscene.
don't. I did feel
Because as
kind
a
of bad.
gamer, I wouldn't have killed her.
She was begging for her life. Like, I can't shoot someone who's begging, who's bleeding and begging for their life.
Right. And I've told people that, like, because when people have asked, like, what's your review about the game? And like my biggest takeaway from the game is that out of any game I've ever played in my entire life, this is the only game I have ever played to where I finally got to the boss level and I did not want to defeat the boss at
Right,
all.
right.
I felt
And
absolutely terrible. I didn't want to fucking shoot a
right.
shot. I didn't want to throw
I
a
didn't want to kill
punch.
anybody.
Nothing, because I really understood that all these people were just working, like it's
And
just on a
literally, like,
regular shift.
the Fireflies are literally, at least from their point of view, their mantra, they're literally fighting to save humanity.
Right,
Like,
so
they
they're
are
very
the good
confused.
guys.
Right, you trying to kill all these people is like it'd be like taking out the UN, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Or
Well,
what is it?
no, but if you
The
look at
Peace Corps. Like
yeah,
it's literally like murdering the entire Peace Corps, like
right.
on a mission. You know what I'm saying? Like while they're out
But you had the
doing a
Avengers and you
whole
want to kill them all.
right, but like obliterated them. Not
Yeah,
even like
right.
regular killed these people, like just murdered the shit out of these people. It's like,
Which always, you and I
sorry.
talked about this before in terms of talking about the game, not on podcast. You've always talked about it like, is this a game where you're the bad guy?
Right.
Like, is Joel
You
the
don't
bad
realize
guy?
until it ends. You're
Like,
like,
is Joel the bad guy in this whole
oh,
story? Like, is he the
wait a
villain
minute.
in a sense?
But I will say too, playing the game, the hint that I got at being the bad guy for the first time was when we meet David,
Yeah,
who we
yeah,
met in a previous
yeah, yeah,
episode, who
yeah, yeah,
literally said we lost one of our men. Da, da, da. There was a
yeah.
crazy man traveling with a
Little
young
girl.
girl. And literally the entire game that I
Oh,
played, murdering the shit out of
like shit.
everybody, not caring at all. When he said that, I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I've been traveling with a crazy man. I'm out here traveling with a psychopath. He's just killing everybody. And I'm like, yeah, okay. Like, this is fucked
And I'm
up.
the one doing all the killing.
This psycho has me doing his bidding. Oh my God. I had no idea. You know, so it's like this whole thing where like you're really
Right.
like questioning your own humanity. You're questioning what side you're on.
Yep.
Because a
And
part of you really wants to be like, no, we care about humanity and all things good. But like, I love Ellie
you're right.
humanity.
Right.
Humanity
Right.
kidnapped us. Humanity tried to rape us. Humanity tried to murder us. You know what I'm saying? Humanity is Fedra. Humanity is all these other forces. So it's like humanity becomes a very, very different term, I feel, in
Mhm.
within the world of The Last of Us. And that's what ends up making you feel very icky. Is like,
Also,
ugh. In that scenario, what would I do?
speaking of icky, when Joel, to finish the episode, lies to her face. You know when someone's guilty, they don't shut up.
Yeah.
He does that. He's talking so much, talking. That's when he tells her about Sarah and he keeps talking. You know, he mentions that, yeah, it's only a 5 mile hike. You know, that's cool, right? And all that kind of stuff. She's like, and you can tell she's thinking. I love both in the game and in the series. Without speaking, you understand everything that's going through Ellie's mind.
Yeah.
She doesn't believe him. She's not. You can understand early on in the episode, we get a little hint about how well she's gone to know Joel. When they get to the hospital and he's like, oh, I have a plan. He's like, what? Gonna climb the building, check with the mover. He's like, no. Okay, fine, yes. You know, after making a joke about the dynamite. So she knows him so well. So when he's lying to her face, she's like, she has like that poker face thing, right? Where she's like, bullshit.
Also, remember previously in a few episodes earlier, we literally Ellie catches Joel in a lie, or we notice that Joel won't lie. Like Ellie says to him, you could have just lied, man.
Yeah.
You know, you should have lied. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't know. So I feel like now that Joel's finally lying, Ellie's able to tell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like you said, she knows him well enough. And I feel like it's one of those scenarios where, and like not to give extremes, but I feel like all of us, at least if you're an adult at this point, you have been in a scenario where someone that you cared about so fucking much lied to you, a bold-faced lie, and you had to choose, am I going to accept this lie in the moment because I love this person and I'm going to proceed in this relationship and hope that eventually they're just gonna tell me the truth, or am I gonna just sever ties with this person because I know that they're lying to me? But what does the severing ties mean? Because for a lot of us, the severing ties is if it's a relationship that's important enough. It's like, how important is it to you to where this, and how much does this lie matter on the scale of how much you care about this person? And sadly, like, people who stay with somebody that cheats, even when you see the text messages, you could be in a fucking car and stalking them, you have video proof, but you're going to stay with this person because,
They can have
you know,
another child.
right. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like, but you love this person and deep down that you're not actually going anywhere. I'll follow you to the moon. You know what I'm saying? And in that situation, it's like, because you're not going nowhere, would you rather the truth and you having to deal with the truth, or would you rather them lie to your face? I don't know. Like, me
Yeah.
personally, I'd rather be told the truth. But in Ellie's scenario, I understand, because what's the alternative for Ellie?
Right. What is it from Ellie's point of view? She's not sure what does the truth sound like and look like. If she asks about Marlene, he's kind of quiet. And Ellie, from her
Yeah.
point of view, Marlene still loves her because Ellie had a closeness to Marlene. That's what she asks
Yeah.
about Marlene. She doesn't know anything negative about Marlene.
Yeah.
And what I love about this is that we spent the whole season building this trust. We finally got it, only for the last scene.
Just
But
for her to trust in you to lie to her.
yeah, just and
Because at any
again,
other point in the season, he wouldn't have gotten away with the lie.
no,
She
and
would have been
then
like, bullshit.
now, even though she's keeping it inside for now, her views on Joel have changed.
Completely.
Completely changed. In fact,
Completely.
it's not, at least for this moment, her
It's
view has
sad when the
changed.
kids realize you're full of shit.
Oh, yeah.
It happens to every kid when they realize their parent just doesn't have it fully figured out. Even if
Right.
it's not like a lie or whatever, that moment of like, but you're human.
Yeah.
And it's sad.
And you not just you lied, but you did something.
Mhm.
Like
And you're not
I
gonna
know you did
you did
something.
something bad enough to
Bad.
where you
Yes.
have to lie, which is
Yes.
almost worse. And it's like,
Yes.
for Ellie, there's a lot of things, because it's like she could be afraid of him in that moment. You know what I'm saying? Because, like, she doesn't know what he's capable of. You don't trust him. You were asleep and now you're awake and we're in a whole different situation now. The mission's changed. Um, it's just so much. It's like, but I also feel like, again, for Ellie, what's the alternative? You're gonna call Joel out on his shit and he's gonna actually tell you the truth, and then what? So now you both have to live with the burden of what
Mhm.
Joel did for you.
Mhm.
You could assume, you could make things up in your head of what he sacrificed, or the choices that had to be made. But once it's confirmed, you as a person, how do you continue to move forward knowing that somebody did all of that for you?
Well, that's the thing. I think what makes it harder for her is that I think she's realizing that he didn't do it for her. He did it for himself. And
Yeah,
I think
that,
that's what's hurting her the most. That you didn't do this to protect me, and especially when,
or for humanity, which she thought
yeah,
she was on this mission for.
again, she's probably remembering context like, hey, you not too long ago, you were telling me not to do this mission. And now suddenly it's not a mission anymore.
Right.
And this is why I say, why I agree with you in terms of realizing that this person you looked up to is human. This person that you looked up to as your protector is more focused protecting themselves right now. Is being selfish right now, as opposed to someone who'd protect me and help me on this journey of what I need. And even though it's protecting me, understanding what I need to do. Because like we said before, I think Ellie, with some thought and giving this decision and say, what do you want to do, would go through with it. I believe she would go through with it. And because she's still at the point where, as bad as things have gotten to her, she didn't live, she still has hope for a future. She knows that now is bad, but because she hasn't lived in the past, or her perspective of the past is a different perspective. Like things like, you got to fly in planes. Okay, yeah, there was crappy and shit like that, but you got to fly. You got to have this. You got to have that. So for as bad as the world was, you just didn't see the good that you had in the moment until it was all lost. You never appreciated it. And so she has this kind of faith to move forward that no matter what, at least I can, in this post-apocalyptic world where the world is dying, I can leave something that can fix the world. And that's worth dying for in her mind. You keep pushing on, do whatever it takes, keep pushing on. The things like someone like Riley taught her this. Riley didn't give up hope. Even in her dying moments, she still had hope for the future, even if the future was 6 seconds or 2 days, 60 minutes, whatever she says. And I love that aspect of it. And I love seeing it through their eyes, but you can see it through Joel's eyes as this person who, even as wrong as I feel he is, like we said, we understand why he does it, because that's the only thing he's good at. That's the only, like his brother says, we weren't good at the other ways. And going forward, I wonder how we're going to play with that, because again, back to Jacksonville, this is different. In the game, we saw Tommy multiple times. This time we only saw Tommy outside of flashbacks. We saw only see Tommy once. So going back to Jacksonville, how did things come out? We know some things because you played the second game. There's certain narrative things that happened we won't go into now. But one good thing I heard recently, the creator of the show said the second game is so big because the first game season 1 followed the first game, but the second game is so big it will take more than one season to tell the story of the second game. So it won't be season 2 second game. It might be season 2, 3, and 4 the second game.
Oh, I'm not mad at that.
Yes. So
because that kind of leads to my nitpicks. But anyway,
no, I think we can go into that. I think because that's the end of the episode itself.
Yeah.
So what were your seasonal nitpicks?
Yeah. So I think yeah. So starting at 1, I think the finale should have been longer. I think we should have built a little more time with things being good between Ellie and Joel before everything came crashing down. Because I was nowhere near as emotional as I was in the game playing. Like in the game, it's like, granted, I get that you have hours and hours and hours and hours of gameplay to like develop these characters and get to know people, but for the finale to be one of the shortest episodes is kind of crazy to me. You know what I'm saying? Like I would have loved to see more Joel and Ellie interaction. I would have loved to see more, like, because also I think in the game it's like a couple of months that go by between seeing David and them getting to the Fireflies. It's several months, and Ellie is still just as messed up or whatever, has the same PTSD. But and I do love that they added moments in this in terms of like conversation, the whole suicide thing with Joel. But again, I feel like, I don't know if it's pacing or what, but I think that when the final like moment finally came of like Joel's violence, me personally, as a season, I feel like I would have preferred more violence from Joel. Because I feel like I wasn't as scared. Like it wasn't as much of a buildup. Like playing the game, I was fully aware of what Joel was capable of. Like because I had done it, so I was aware of what Joel was capable of. So when people went to challenge Joel, or after Marlene was on some, if he tries anything, kill him, I was like, fuck. As the gamer, like, oh no, y'all done started Joel up. See, now you got this man started. Now I know what he's about to do. And it was like this anxiety of like, please just appease Joel, because y'all don't know how bad this can get. I felt like if I was only watching the show, I wouldn't have, I don't know. I think I wouldn't have understood what Joel is capable of. And then seeing what he does seems like a reach to me. Just from like not seeing him go this crazy in any other scenario. So like I didn't love that. I also would have loved more infected throughout the series.
I would say in terms of Joel's violence, I think again, I'm not saying better for worse. I think that was a conscious decision there along the time to not go as violent as the game. And I think the game has an advantage in terms of understanding Joel more because you are Joel, right? You are him. And I think so because you spend so much time as Joel, you understand Joel in a way that you wouldn't if you didn't play like that. And I think, again, not necessarily saying better or worse. I think what they wanted to play with is understanding through context of his history. Things like like we said, Tommy's saying we were good at one way, but we weren't good another way. Joel's quick reactions to doing things kind of hints at this person that he could be. His history with Bill telling him we are the same, and understanding who Bill is through that. So I think, again, through narrative choices in the series, I think that's kind of how they wanted to play with it. And at the same time, remember that the point was to not glorify the violence. I think if we showed more of Joel being a badass, it would have led to us being more like, yo, he's a badass kind of thing. So
again, I agree with that. But I feel like it feeds into my other critique, which is I would have loved to see more infected throughout, only because I feel like Joel could have had that violent outlet with all of us feeling like this is completely justified because they're not people. You know what I'm saying? Like it sounds bad, but the same way that like a PG or PG-13 movie gets away with like killing several aliens or a whole bunch of non-human characters, you can do that because humans are desensitized when it's not us. You know what I'm saying? When it's not an actual human flesh living person. So I feel like having more infected, we would have been able to kind of see more of Joel's.
I think this Joel,
right?
But I also think the infected in the series are tougher than the infected in the game. That's why we see less of them. I feel like that the like if you had a horde of infected the same way that you had a horde in the game, I feel like in this series, I don't think you could stop a whole horde. Maybe one or
Yeah.
two coming at you, but
even that, did you shoot yourself in the foot for having it be where they're a collective mind? Because I'm like, I wouldn't have minded seeing one infected
well,
randomly wandering the woods, or because that
well,
happens in a game. There's
well,
sometimes
funny,
there's just
funny you
one.
say that. The creators spoke about that, and they said there's a reason also why in this first series they focused on more secluded areas. You had one or two dense city populated areas where it's more secluded where you have reasons not to, but they said that they are planting the seeds for that whole connected thing, for seasons. Because again, you have to also remember that they're planting seeds because they know they've got 2 more seasons, right?
That's what I kind of hate. Because the first game was fire because there were no future plans. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't give me the Marvel bullshit. Like, I just want a perfect series now. Like,
but again,
give
I
it to
think,
me.
but I think that's complaint is also from us as the gamers because again, someone like my wife, I use her as a test. I don't tell her things. She doesn't mind that we don't see as much zombies because she's
See,
not
I got the
expecting it.
opposite.
Yeah,
When I asked people that like didn't play the game,
yeah.
most people's biggest critique to me was the fact that like
But but
there's
is
no
that because?
infected or there's no like,
But I think that's also the Walking Dead situation because I think a lot of people were wanted to watch a zombie show,
Mm,
and my argument is that the beats of what makes the story good is nothing to do with the zombies. It's the
mm,
human aspects, the human stories. In
mm,
fact, and some of the best episodes for me are the human. I never talk about episode being good because of the zombies. Outside of like that one scene where this whole horde of zombies comes, the episode good. And even in that episode, the best parts of it are the human characters, are Sam's story and Henry's story, and what's the name story that we get introduced to earlier on. She was in charge of the rebel groups, and
Kathleen.
killing, yeah, Kathleen. And for me, I understand why people feel some kind of way because the zombie designs are really cool and all that stuff is really cool, but I don't mind it so because what I don't want it to be is the opposite, right? Become Walking Dead, where Walking
Yeah, of
Dead
course not.
every week zombie, like someone was telling me now, Walking Dead. I haven't watched it, so there's someone telling me this, saying like Walking Dead got to the point where everyone's a sharpshooter. Every day we walking down the street, zombie, killing zombies. And I think that has trained people to watch zombie shows and believe that, well, that's how it should be. And what I think this takes a more quote unquote realistic approach that, well, okay, if zombies or something like that had infected us, what does it look like 20 years later
Mm,
versus what does it look like when it just happened, right? Because population will dwindle exponentially,
mm,
and you'd have to create a massive situation that causes the zombies to come, like previous episode. Well, we drove them underground, but we kept them there, but we didn't realize that they're still underground, so they can burst out any moment, or they're sleeping until you wake them up, and so let's go into areas where they won't be. So I think, just to play devil's advocate here, I think what happens is that we don't question logic in video games. Like accepting
mm.
Joel can imagine they gave Joel the hearing thing of the show. We'd be like, what the fuck? So I think it's you're never gonna find it perfectly. And I'm not saying that what the
Yeah,
writers did were right. I just think that there's that constant, like, you got to constantly balance. And sometimes when you play that balancing act, some things work and some things don't. Because there's a lot of people who don't like the fact that the violence is not glorified. There's some people who don't like the somber nature of the violence and want the hardcore, crazy violence just for the fun of it. They want Joel Wick. But then the
yeah,
show makes a conscious decision to be like, no, we're going to actually show violence as this thing that's not so glorified. We're going to do the opposite to what the game did. Because the game, as much as it shows violence, it doesn't, you only feel bad towards the end, right? You're not feeling bad in the beginning. You're like, yeah, snap
yeah.
people's necks, stab, shave them in the neck, all that stuff. But the show starts to make you question that earlier on in the story. So I say that also to say I understand why people would be
Yeah.
thinking that I want more of this, as opposed to getting less of it because that's sort of kind
Yeah.
of cool stuff we want to see.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a mix between like wanting like more threats in general, like beyond just like the typical like week to week we run into this person and
mhm,
they're a threat now. Like, it's like something as simple as like Fedra was barely in this at all,
yeah,
and granted, and like Fedra plays a way bigger part in the game. And beyond that, you understand or sympathize with the Fireflies more in the game simply because there's a bigger opposing force in the game to where there's something to compare the Fireflies to. So you end up feeling like I side with the Fireflies, or oh, they're up for a good thing, because Fedra is constantly making shit worse for you in the
Mhm.
game. Where like granted, Fedra claims that their goal is the same as Fireflies, like the betterment of the human race or whatever, and to keep everything controlled. But in the game, you kind of like, I don't know, I feel like it's more of like a feeling of like there is no safety. Like Fedra doesn't have your back,
Mhm.
the Fireflies is literally the light in the game, at least. Like,
Mhm.
but the fake light, because Joel doesn't believe it, but
Mhm.
it's the only type of hope that anybody has. And I feel like that's the only thing that I will say like about the show too, is like I would have liked a little more like serious hints at Fedra, at bare minimum, in comparison to every time that the Fireflies were mentioned. Like I would like almost like an equal amount
Mhm.
of Fedra mentions, only because like people on the day to day, like we need to understand why people that are in Jackson would separate and do their own thing, because they're not under Fedra rule. There are places who like David's community who have nothing to do with Fedra, who do their own thing, but it's like, but why?
But
And it's like,
well,
you know,
in that it mentioned that David was with people at Fedra and they left.
yeah, it was an accusing and
Yeah,
dip.
yeah, yeah, yeah. They
Right.
did dip. But what I also think, I
We
think
never get
again,
to like see what Fedra does. We only hear stories about Fedra. And I feel like having them as like, I don't know, an actual threat
well,
throughout the series maybe
that's
would
what I was
have
gonna say.
helped raise
I
the
think
stakes a bit for
But I
me.
think stories of Fedra almost raise the stakes, right? Because we hear the stories of Fedra through other people, the Fedra's evil entity. And the one time we actually see Fedra from the inside, we're like, oh, actually, they may not be that bad. With Captain Kwan. Other stories, universe building stories, they spend a lot of time setting up the future, not focusing on this story. But I think in terms of the story they wanted to tell, which is literally about Joel and Ellie, they were able to tell that story.
Mm.
It's not like it was that story was sacrificed for future stories. But I think what the difference here is that because Neil Druckmann speaks about this on the podcast, he learned a lot going from number one to number two. There are certain things they introduced in number two, they were like, oh damn, if I had known, I would have introduced in number one. This, and even certain things that introduced in the series that he wished he introduced in the game, like Sam being deaf, things like that, little touches like that. And so what's the opportunity now is like, okay, how can we tell the story in a greater tapestry in a way that we can plan out now that we didn't have a chance to do before? And I think it's not like some comic book stories where it's like, oh, we're not going to focus the story. Like one of my issues with some of Marvel and DC films is that the actual story you're telling now is boring. I'm actually more interested in what you're setting up to come forward.
Yeah,
Whereas
I'm tired of that shit too.
right,
Just start making me good movies
right,
right now.
just
Like
tell me
I'm
now.
tired of the bullshit. Make me a
Whereas
good movie. Give me an end cut scene. That's what we really want. Stop playing games.
Whereas I think with this, I think they don't play games with the story they're telling now. Yes, they don't give us more context than other things, but I think that's not the story they're trying to tell. They just want to tell you that these things exist, sure, but changing those things, like taking Fedra and all that kind of stuff, doesn't really change anything about Joel and Ellie's story. I think the story still, with all the changes that were made, the story was still well told, and in some cases would get enhancements to their story that kind of really cement aspects of their characters more than they did in the game. And it makes you understand, okay, there's some things that they are setting up for the future, but Joel and Ellie's story now has got to a point where we've seen that person cargo relationship to, okay, fine, let's work together because we're the only ones left together relationship, to holy shit, we're starting to get feelings for each other like father daughter, to I would do anything to go do anything for you, to did you just lie to me about the
Yeah,
biggest thing ever? And
yeah,
I think for me, future seasons as a viewer, not a game, but as a viewer, I'm more interested in what happens next to their relationship because of that, as opposed to what is Fedra doing, what the Fireflies doing. You could bring in other
yeah,
entities into it, and it's like, okay, well, will Ellie find out? What happens when Ellie find out? How long would it take for Ellie to find out? What's going to happen next? They're going to go to Jacksonville, and then what's going to happen there? In terms of the cure. Maybe there's a part of Joel that's right. We see how Ellie was born. Could other people have been born that way to get to get immunity? Shit, what
mm,
if people found out that that's how you get immunity? Will Fedra or the Fireflies start getting people pregnant on purpose to infect them while they're pregnant? So it's like these are massive things that could keep moving forward. And again, I don't want to go into specifics. I know the story of the second game. I'm trying not to. I'm being vague on purpose, but There are, for those of us who know the second game, there are a lot of Easter eggs and hints for the future. There's a huge hint in the Jacksonville episode that we won't go into, but there are massive, massive hints throughout, and I'm excited to see where the second season goes.
Yeah. Same. I'm definitely excited. Like, no matter what, I still absolutely love it. I think out of any game adaptation ever, this is obviously the number one of all time.
What? It's not
Um,
better than Halo? What are you talking about?
but it's like, it's one of those things where it's like my nitpicks make it like a 9.5 or a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10. But you know what I'm saying? Like, what is really a perfect show, especially an adaptation. But,
Some of the scenes are perfectly adapted, like shot
oh
for
no,
shot.
some episodes were perfect. But I think that's my thing. I think in hindsight, it's like things that we spent entire episodes on and things that we didn't get at all. It's like in hindsight, I would have at bare minimum liked maybe a 10th episode and then adding 5 minutes more to like each little moment.
I will
But
also
it's tough
say,
because again, I absolutely love Bill and Frank. I think don't touch that, leave it the fuck alone. But at the same time, it was technically a standalone out of 9. You know what I'm saying? So moments like that, it's like, ugh.
though we could say that that standalone helped inform Joel, right?
I did,
We need that
100%.
to who Joel is, and I also have to say
I'm
that,
never gonna be mad at Bill and Frank's episode. I'm just saying it was a perfect episode. I loved it. But at the
and
same time, you have 9,
but also to
you
close that
know?
out, I also feel, I don't know if you felt this way, but I kind of, if we're talking about translation, right, and
Mhm.
something by design as opposed to wrong or right, I actually felt the same way playing the game when it ended. I was like, oh,
Yeah, you
okay.
feel like what
I
it
thought
was
there's gonna be,
now.
I thought there's gonna be another epic
Yeah,
moment,
nothing.
right? I thought there was gonna be one last epic fight,
Yeah.
like against some kind of boss or some kind of crazy infected monster. I thought we'd have that last massive hurrah.
The
I didn't
end,
think,
you're literally going against humanity, and it's kind of
but I
fucked
didn't,
up.
but I didn't think that. I think that hospital gunfight. I didn't think that was the end while I was doing it.
Yeah, no, me neither.
That's what
I
I'm
thought that
saying.
there was a boss. Like I thought there was gonna be
Yeah,
like an infected or something, or like a
or crazy
bloater.
fight
I thought it was
against
gonna be
Marlene,
2 bloaters. I was like, all
right?
right, 2
I'm
bloaters,
fighting.
and I'm gonna fuck Marlene up.
That's what I'm saying. Two bloaters and Marlene and her people. Like everyone is just everyone mashed.
Right.
Fedra turns up.
And the
Everyone's
worst
just
thing
like
is
a
they're
big
not even really fighting you in the
no.
end. Like you're
And that's the thing.
mostly you can be stealth, which I didn't know until watching somebody's
Oh
video
yeah,
on YouTube. I murdered
I did a lot
everyone.
of. And that's
I
the thing.
murdered
It's
everyone.
not
I
even the
that's no
toughest fight
problem.
in
No,
the game.
it's easy. It's the
Yeah,
same as like it's literally just don't be detected. And then if you are detected, just shoot them because as we saw the infinite bag,
yep.
you have an AK-47 at this point. We didn't see a flamethrower. That's one of my
No,
nitpicks.
or
No
brick.
flamethrowers, no bottles thrown, no bricks thrown. So I'm
So
sorry.
he does make a joke about the dynamite.
He does, but at the same time, we could have thrown a brick.
Right, right.
So those are like my little,
But
but
that's
at
my
the
thing.
same time, still loved it.
But that's my thing in terms of if
Damn
people.
near a perfect show.
I feel like if people had the those who've never played the game had that issue in terms of how abrupt the ending might have felt. I'm like, I felt the same thing in the game. I think I felt the same way. It was like, oh, because I didn't get an inkling at that moment that we're towards the end of the game. I literally thought I had like 2 hours, 3 hours left when I was
Right.
playing the game.
Same. I didn't even know
Like,
I was on the last chapter.
no, I didn't. I had no idea it was in the last chapter. I was like,
So,
oh, because we had this long cutscene from Marlene's death right up to the talking, walking, and then just end credits
and
roll.
then you go back to walking for like 2 minutes, which is
Right.
random. You're like walking through the woods, and then you look at Jackson. It's like observe, and you click it, and then it's like credits, and you're like,
I was like,
wait, what?
oh, so
So
I
we're
think,
not gonna talk about this? You're just gonna lie to my face, and we're just gonna end the show? Okay.
and that's why I think they even translated that feeling
Yeah, oh, definitely.
over. And I think, but again, I think,
The creators though also said like Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin said that they've like basically just like tuned out like social media or any type of critique or review because like obviously they're sticking to the story that they made, but they're like they really don't know what people are saying about the show. But at the same time, the ending of the game has been being debated for 10 plus years now. And it always will be.
and
Again, it comes down to morality. It comes down to there's so many factors, but at the end of the day, it is so human to love and protect the ones you love by any means necessary, and most people understand that.
Well, that's the thing, right? Of the ending. As a writer, that's what you want. You want an ending
Right.
that has people talking about it 10 years later.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't necessarily look at it as a critique. I look at it as narrative genius, because people be talking
Right.
and arguing. No, it's like this. No, it should be like this. You don't want people not talking about your show as soon as they finish watching. Oh, okay, cool. That's it. Shut up.
Right.
That's the worst thing. I personally think, opinions are different, but I personally think as a writer, that's the worst thing you can do. I want to write something that, because even they say they can't give you all the answers. They won't even admit who's right, who's wrong. Don't give people answers. Let people keep
Right.
guessing. Let people keep asking questions. Because as people asking questions, they create their own narratives, and it makes the narrative of your world grow in terms of the
Mhm.
dialogue behind it. You start having people creating. That's how people start doing fan stuff and fan narratives and cosplay and all this kind of stuff, because they become so into the story, and one can know what could possibly happen and all the possibilities. I think that's where you want to leave people. You want people left wanting, right? Not
Yeah.
fully satisfied. Like I said, I think a good world builder can give me satisfaction for the narrative they're trying to tell now,
Hmm.
but leave me wanting more for the stuff that I feel that they haven't given me yet.
Yeah.
And I think some people do that really well, and some people focus on the stuff that I haven't gotten. Like sometimes it's like the stuff that I haven't gotten is more interesting than the stuff I did get. But I think in this instances, the stuff that I did get was super interesting. That makes me want to know more about the stuff that I didn't. What do you nerdies think of this show, this season, this episode? There's a lot to talk about, but as expected, we said it last week that this week's episode will be divisive, and it's been that way for the game, and it's going to be that way for the show. And the writers are happy that people won't shut up about our show, which is always great. You want the conversation to always be around the thing you create, especially because it could be a while before season 2. Let us know what you like. Find us on social media at The Nerdy Bunch. And if you are a fan of nerd stuff, we haven't got anything else for you. But if you're a fan of sports stuff, we're going to be doing Ted Lasso series. We're starts this week as we record this. I think it airs tomorrow. No, 2 days from now as we record
Okay.
this.
Yeah.
So by the end of the week, we will have our podcast up. So look out for that Ted Lasso season 3. If you're fans, stay tuned for that at the same time slot as this is released. So you don't have to change your podcast services. It'll just bling pop up if you are subscribed on our
Which
YouTube.
is why you should subscribe. Especially if
Exactly.
you listen this long. Clearly you like us.
Right. You like our voices, you like our thoughts, you like
Right.
our perspective. Oh, check out our perspective on I still think Ted Lasso's nerd stuff is just sports nerds as opposed to sci-fi genre nerds.
I'm very much Ted Lasso. I know nothing about football.
But you are
Football is
sport,
life.
but you are a sports person, so you
I
understand the
do.
atmosphere
I play
of
sports.
a sports dressing room and the camaraderie between a team. You get that. I feel like if you understand
You
one
don't have
sport,
to be a sports
you don't have to be a
like
specific sports.
fan to
Yeah,
watch Ted Lasso though. I feel
yeah,
like even
either.
if you
Yeah,
don't even like doing anything physical, it's just such a feel good fucking
it is.
show.
It is.
Even the saddest episodes, you still walk away being, oh, football is life.
Well, because it's feel good, but it's not ignorant to reality, right? It's very
Yeah.
real. It's very real shit happens. You know, it's just how do you deal with it? That's the difference. Anyway, thank you, Raven.
Thank you.
My name's English Dave, and this has been the season finale discussion on The Last of Us. And as always, Raven,
Keep it nerdy. Peace.
peace.